Today, we're talking about the greatest virtue in business and in life, and that is humility. If you like this channel, please subscribe and also click that bell so you get all the videos that come out each week. Ring it, baby.
Ring it, baby.
Get the old ring-a-dingy.
Get the old ring-a-dingy.
Today, we're talking about the greatest virtue in business and in life, and that is humility. In Proverbs, it says, "Before destruction, the heart of a man is haughty, and before honor is humility." Well, the word humility has been thrown around in our culture so much that I believe that it's lost some of its zest, kind of like the word love, which is an important word, but it has so many different meanings. An example, I love my wife dearly. I love ketchup. It's the same word, yet the meanings are completely different. So when you say someone is humble or an organization has humility, what does that even mean? That's what I want to unpack right now. And this is so important because I believe that humility is the greatest virtue that a person or a business can have. And if the business leader has humility, the ripple effect will penetrate through the organization and it will affect the entire business. So what is true humility? If you can imagine a humble person, what person do you imagine? Think about that. A thought that comes to mind is maybe a man. He's driving a beat-up pickup truck. He's a little dirty. His demeanor is kind of like Eeyore, you know, that downcast donkey from the 100-Acre Woods.
Don't pay any attention to me. Nobody ever does.
Some might say he's a nobody, or he's just a soft pushover. And he himself believes that he is a nobody because he's not valuable. Is this the picture of humility in your mind? I think that picture accurately represents what many people in our culture think when they think of a humble person. But that isn't at all what a truly humble person is. C.S. Lewis in his book, Mere Christianity, said this about what a humble person might look like. Do not imagine that if you meet a really humble man, he will be what most people call humble nowadays. He will not be sort of a greasy, smarmy person who's always telling you that, of course, he is a nobody. Probably all you will think about him is that he seemed a really cheerful, intelligent chap who took a real interest in what you had to say to him. If you do dislike him, it will be because you feel a little envious of anyone who seems to enjoy life so easily. He will not be thinking about humility. He will not be thinking about himself at all. I heard a pastor once say that humility is not thinking less of yourself, but it is thinking of yourself less. True humility is taking focus off of yourself and placing genuine focus on other people. A humble person doesn't even think about humility at all, or even himself, because he is so captured with love for other people and the love of God. I believe that a humble person wakes up grateful every single day. Gratefulness is the start of a humble life. So I was interviewing a banker on my podcast a while back, and he gave a great picture of gratefulness versus ungratefulness. You see, he had a woman that worked for him, and she was a high achiever. She was doing fantastic at her job. The manager wanted to reward this employee by giving her a big raise. So he called her into his office, and he said, "I've got great news for you. I love what you're doing for this company, and I want to reward you by giving you $10,000 more per year. It's a nice raise." The woman stepped back and she looked astonished and almost disgruntled. And she said, "Is that it? $10,000? Is that all?" The manager was shocked by this ungrateful response from this employee. He was utterly disgusted. And he thought to himself, well, heck, with that attitude, I don't want to give you the raise at all. In fact, I don't even want you to work here. You're fired. My guest then proceeded to tell me of a highlight that same day when he was on his way home from work. He saw a homeless man staggering by, and the man looked extremely hungry. My guest pulled out a $20 bill out of his pocket and gave the hungry man that $20. The homeless man lit up, and he was in shock, and he was so grateful and thankful, and he gave my guest the biggest hug, and with tears in his eyes, he said, "You just changed my life." My guest then looked around his car to find all the money that he had, and he gave it to this man. My guest gave two accounts, one of gratefulness and one of ungratefulness. You see, if someone has an ungrateful heart, people want to take what you have. But with a grateful heart, people want to give you what you don't have. A grateful heart starts with a focus off of himself and onto God and onto others. In the business sense, a humble leader is a grateful leader. The humble business leader, he can't believe that his team wants to actually work for his organization. He's shocked by how hard they work, and he's grateful for the sacrifice they give to the organization. The gratefulness pours out onto his team, and he serves them with a humble and grateful attitude. I see many business leaders think that their employees are only there to serve them, to make them more money, and their prideful, selfish attitude believes that since they pay their employee, they have total control over that employee's life. However, the humble leader is there to genuinely serve his team. The humble leader is there to build the team culture with gratefulness and humility, where all the team members care about others more than themselves. They care about their organization more than themselves. They don't think less of themselves, but they also don't think of themselves much at all. Jim Collins wrote a book. It was called Good to Great. In it, he studied some of the greatest businesses in our world. He said there are a lot of good businesses, but there are only a few great businesses. He said one of the core pieces of data that he extracted from these great businesses was that the leader of the business demonstrated humility. So if you want a great business, then learn from the best out there and focus on others. I recently just got back from a trip from Guatemala. There's a lady named Pastor Mercedes, and she grew up in the slums of Guatemala. She grew up hungry. She was very poor. She took care of her brothers and sisters looking for anything she could find to eat, looking through the trash, wading through garbage at the dump just to find a bite to feed her family. When she was 15 years old, she gave her life to Christ, and it transformed her life so much. She believed that God gave her a mission to help feed other children living in the poor areas of Guatemala. For the last many years, she has opened many feeding centers, and she's feeding hundreds of kids every single day. And many times, this is the only meal that these children have for that day. At one point, I was sitting with some other business owners listening to Pastor Mercedes' story. But one of the business owners wanted to give a donation to Pastor Mercedes after hearing her story, to help her with some of her health needs as she was struggling with her health. Pastor Mercedes didn't ask for it, but the businessman felt so moved in his heart to give it to her. But he couldn't give the money directly to Pastor Mercedes. He had to give the money to another leader in her organization. The reason being that if he gave her the money, Pastor Mercedes probably would have spent it on a child in need instead of using it on her own health needs. She would spend it on someone else, not on herself. Later on that night, one of the business leaders in the group felt so inspired and comfortable around Pastor Mercedes that he said that he would rather spend time with this woman and listen to her speak than spend time with any other person, including very well-known business people or celebrities that he admired. I thought to myself, what was it about this woman that this man admired so much? She wasn't the most powerful person. She didn't have much money. She wasn't the most presentable person or the best speaker. So what was it that made her so admirable? I believe that it was because that she had the most humility. You see, she wasn't thinking about herself at all. She was only thinking about God and the mission that God had put before her, serving these poor, hungry kids in the dump of Guatemala. I believe that humility is the greatest virtue that one can have, and it's the most attractive quality of any business or business leader that I can think of. In Philippians chapter 2, it says, "Do nothing from selfish or empty conceit, but with humility consider one another as more important than yourself. Do not merely look out for your own personal interests, but also for the interests of others. Have this attitude in yourself, which was also in Christ Jesus." Humility isn't about thinking you're worth less than others. It's prioritizing others before yourself, just like Jesus did. So seek true humility. It's more valuable than what our culture paints it out to be. Proverbs chapter 22 says, "True humility and fear of the Lord leads to riches, honor, and a long life."